This episode of Political Radar is brought to you by ReleaseWire. ReleaseWire is a powerful media engagement service connecting businesses to journalists and bloggers. If you need to get the word out about your business, ReleaseWire is an effective and affordable way to reach journalists and bloggers who are truly interested. And we have a special offer for you today. Submit your first on-demand press release with ReleaseWire and save 25% by entering the discount code PoliticalRadar. That's Political Radar. ReleaseWire, from release to results.
Admiral, radar shows that we have liberals approaching at 3 o'clock, and libertarians at 9 o'clock, and conservatives at 6 o'clock. They're coming from every angle, every viewpoint. Oh, it's Political Radar with your hosts, Rhonda and Elliot.
Hey, all you political junkies. Welcome to Political Radar, the best 30 minutes of uncensored, unscripted political talk you will hear today.
Yeah, so we're going to keep it to 30 minutes so we can get awesome guests like we have today on short notice and only commit them to half an hour instead of an hour. So I think everybody's going to like that a lot better, and we can potentially record more in one day, release more in a week. I think everybody wins. So 30 minutes.
30 minutes, I think, is realistic for most people in their lives these days, don't you think?
I do.
Yeah. The attention span of most people is maybe 27 minutes.
I have no idea. I don't pay attention to people.
I think it's pretty close to that.
Yeah.
For full disclosure, we want to talk about the pool. It's a very big issue right now in Green Bay. Poolgate is actually what I'm started to call it because that's pretty reflective of what's happening.
We're the only ones calling it Poolgate.
I think it's catching, though. I think it's catching on.
You have no evidence of this.
Yes, I do.
I like
do,
it.
actually. So we did have the Alderman of District 8 in Green Bay on the City Council, which is Chris Wery. We had him scheduled for the show. He had to cancel last minute, and that was unfortunate. I think it would have been nice to hear from him, but maybe in the near future we can do that.
Hopefully next week.
Hopefully next week.
I mean, while it still matters, I hope we can get to talk to him.
So the Colburn Pool is in District 8 in the city of Green Bay, and this is exactly what we want to talk about today. So we did go to Miss Debbie Jacques. Did I say your name correctly?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Debbie Jacques is here today in the studio with us, and we're very grateful that you can make it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yes, thank you, Debbie. We have basically we want to have a conversation, and we want to listen to you and have you tell us what you experienced when you were out there campaigning, because you were a candidate in District 8 for
Correct.
the Green Bay City Council.
Yes.
You ran against Chris Wery.
Yes.
And we know that you probably had some conversations with people regarding the Colburn Pool. And
Can we backtrack just a smidge
Maybe.
and talk about what Poolgate is actually?
oh, sure, definitely.
You want to take a stab at that first?
I will. Yeah, sure.
Well, I can take my stab at it, and you correct me.
All
okay?
right, that sounds better. Go ahead.
So for the last couple of years, I think a group of people have been trying to renovate Colburn Pool. It wasn't until just a few months ago that I was made aware that it was going to be an Olympic-sized swimming pool, which...
Where have you been?
Well, I think most people, unless they're intimately involved in the swimming culture of Green Bay, the summer swimming culture of Green Bay, I think they really didn't pay attention until it became a controversy, including me, because I thought, okay, well, there is a pool. Renovating it probably makes sense. So let's do that. I actually thought they were going to keep something very, very similar to what was already there. A kid-centric summer place for families to do stuff, not what I call a place for rich kids to go.
Well, there is actually
have
that aspect of it, but they also want to encourage swim meets and competition swimming as well.
Yeah. So where the Poolgate part comes in is the fact that kind of parallel to that, the Tundra Lodge, which is down the street from Lambeau Field, they are now announcing that they would like to do an Olympic-style swimming pool, which, whatever, competition is great. However, they also want to use some public funds in the form of a TIF. So I think that's where the controversy comes from.
So they're asking for some money in the form of TIF, but actually that's not necessarily the same form of money that the Colburn Pool is asking.
Absolutely not, because the Colburn Pool is a city amenity, so the city basically pays outright for it, minus the $1 million.
Well, they're bonding for it.
Right.
Right.
So they're taking a loan out on it. and they got to
basically.
pay interest. So
Right.
it's actually going to cost a little bit more than what they're going to pay cash. Is what
Where
you're
the
saying.
TIF financing is coming from, the tax increment financing is coming from basically the area and the tax revenue.
Yeah.
So it's very different.
Yeah. So the idea there is that it increases property values, so then they can afford to charge more taxes. It pays for itself.
But then they had a group of people who raised, and I want to get your opinion on this, Debbie, because to me, this is the biggest issue I have with this entire Poolgate is the $1 million that the Friends of Colburn Pool raised. Whether you agree with it or not, the pool, the Olympic size, going to Tundra Lodge or staying at Colburn, that's a lot of money for a community to raise. It's a lot of money for community members to raise. And remember something, okay? And I want to say this because I think some people, this is not something you're reading. The $3.5 million that was approved from the council was approved, a year and a half ago for the city to kick in with the contingency of the Friends of Colburn Pool raising $1 million, which they did successfully. And that's a great effort. But there was really no discussion on the council floor that night. I was at that meeting, and there was really nothing that was discussed. The floor was never opened. There was nothing that happened except for Chris Wery made a motion and he changed it from 2.5, which was the park committee actually recommended $2.5 million. He changed it to $3.5 million. I think maybe two aldermen said 3 words, and then they basically proceeded with this pool. Now, incidentally, since the Tundra Lodge happened, some of these same aldermen who committed to that are saying, actually, no, I think I'm probably going to go with Tundra Lodge's proposal when it comes out, which is interesting. Because then, again, still stands the Friends of Colburn Pool with their $1 million. Now, I don't think that's a very good precedent to set for community members. Hey, we have a great project that we feel, really excited about, but you need to raise money for this to make it come to fruition. And so, what is that going to do for people in the future in the community who are actually asked to raise money for a project? Are they going to reference, remember the Colburn Pool drama?
Okay, I want Debbie to talk now, but
okay. Because I think that's an issue.
I'm confused about the number because, I heard there was like 3.5 million approved, but then I saw it could be 6.5, and then there's no operating costs included in there. So there's a lot more that really, and partly was because it wasn't discussed. But if they want an Olympic pool, I don't think they can get it for 3.5. I think that's the real problem.
I think that's the part that wasn't disclosed to a lot of people. I think when they initially set out to raise this funds, I was at a meeting, and the city engineer went through detail by detail by detail when this project initially got kicked off. And he didn't hide anything, and he pretty much told I don't know if it was the Friends of Colburn Pool at this time or if it was Chris Wery or who it was, but it was going to be $6-point-something million. It could be a little less, could be a little more. So when they set out and they said 3.5 million plus raise, $1 million, they were still going to be short. So where was this money going to come from?
I think, can I answer to that?
Yes.
I can say what I know, that I think that they weren't willing to proceed with someone to actually, create a proposal to, the city committing that money was basically so that they would they knew it was viable. They knew that they were serious about possibly backing this project. So they weren't willing to do anything like that unless the city committee, basically said, sure, we'll give you some money. And that's where that happened. They didn't actually have a price tag at that point,
okay,
from what I understand. But it's again, I think there's a lot of people at fault with this Poolgate, and it's not necessarily
agreed.
It goes back to the process that happened in the first place and how this all came about, and the fact that the right questions were not asked before the city committed that money.
Well, and I hear them criticize Tundra Lodge for not disclosing their plans either, but on the other hand, they would also criticize if there wasn't a full plan put together. So I'm not sure what everybody expects. It sounds like somebody wants to complain no matter what. So I don't know.
I think they needed someone to actually take the reins and say, okay, it's very possible, or hey, there was no feasibility plan, and this was something that, and I think there was a big issue about it, and then there were so many numbers up in the air, and then the fact that, and I would like to ask you, Debbie, what were you hearing, out there doing doors? What were you hearing from people that you talked to in District 8?
Well, first, I just want to comment on anytime that you start a project, I mean, I don't understand why these questions weren't asked in the beginning. I see a lot of kids that attended meetings and their feelings are hurt. They did go out and raise this money, and it's really sad to see that. But unfortunately, why weren't these questions asked in the beginning? How much is it going to cost to put an Olympic-sized pool? How are we going to fund it? How much is the city going to contribute? How much are businesses going to contribute? How are we going to fund this? Not just, kind of put some numbers out there and, it's like throwing a dart at the dartboard. There should have been some concrete numbers out there at the beginning, and this should have been shared with the community. And expanding on that, what did I hear from a lot of people in our district was that they were, a lot of them, they're fine with just putting back in a community-sized pool. They feel that investing into an Olympic-sized pool for a 10-week venue was just outrageous to spend that kind of money on an Olympic-sized pool, especially if we have inclement weather, and then, there won't be a swim meet. And, in Wisconsin, our weather is just so predictable. So,
what did you hear from them as far as, because I know Chris Wery had asked for, I think it was $250,000 from the stadium tax refund to be allocated towards the pool. Did you hear anything about that from anyone in District 8?
No, that was never mentioned. We have a lot of elderly in our district, and their thoughts are they love to take their grandkids to the pool, and they love to spend time there, and it's so beautiful. Why would they want to change anything? And that's really what their thoughts were. And they just thought that the roads really need repaired. We can do other things with that kind of money instead of putting in an Olympic-sized pool.
Well, the city actually approved last week. They approved to bond. It was on the agenda, and they approved to bond for that $3.5 million. So it's out there.
Right. And I think they can put in a beautiful pool, and if they really want this Olympic-sized pool, where's the money going to come from?
Well, actually, in terms of, especially if we're using TIF money, I would be in favor of spending more with Tundra Lodge to have them cover it.
Oh,
because
that's a whole nother angle.
Well,
yeah.
I think it's idiotic, honestly, for us to invest in outdoor amenities when we have 10 weeks, and even that's questionable because it rains half the time. So they're not gonna go have a swim meet in a thunderstorm. So the weather here is really just not reasonable for outdoor amenities, and we just keep pouring money into these outdoor services that, yeah, I like being outside too, but the farmer's market's fine. How much do we really need to be outside when we can't count on the weather cooperating?
Or have you talked to your alderman? Because I feel like
he doesn't talk to me.
Well, this is true.
But I'm going to move, so maybe my new one will.
What district are you
I'm not
in?
sure where we're moving, so I don't know yet. But I'll let you know maybe next week. Yeah, that'll be interesting.
So, okay, so I guess my point with that is there are many aldermen that are saying I have to say this correctly now, alder persons, because, we have a woman on the council. Yay!
Exactly.
So excited.
Is that the right
There
thing?
should be more.
Alder person.
Is it?
That is actually what's in the city, like any
Okay.
of the documents that I see now, and the
Good.
agenda and the
Okay.
pack. Yeah, okay. Alder person is the legit
Okay.
term.
We can't just say alder.
Okay. There are several alder.
I don't know.
I'll
That's
say
a
it.
question. I'm not
If that makes you
demanding
feel
it.
better,
Although
say
I
it.
wish I
I
will.
personally like alderwoman.
Yeah, I think that's
Sounds
fine.
very like
We have
Okay.
waiters and waitresses.
Okay.
Right?
Well, I'm
Whatever.
I'm thinking in plural
Anyway.
terms, so I'm
Right.
going to say alder. So
Here I am, the grammar police.
that's interesting. So there are several alders who are saying, sure, we can go ahead and do both. We don't have to, basically take one off the table. We can do both. What do you think about that? Someone answer that, because I don't know. I'm not sure about that.
Well, I thought that Tundra Lodge said that they would put in an Olympic-sized pool. In fact, if Colburn did not put in one, I didn't think that they were in favor of competing with Colburn Pool. That was my thought. That's I thought I heard.
And I've heard that, and I think, I guess this is maybe how private business runs, but that's an obvious thing. Why do you have to put that actually in a contingency? Was that for the city? I feel like that was a little bit of strong arming the city, possibly, and I wasn't a fan of that piece of their conversation. Well, hello, of course you wouldn't do that, but why do you have to say, we will do this if you basically, refuse this proposal? That's
I
really
agree.
interesting
Lawyers.
to
Yeah.
me.
Lawyers.
What do you mean lawyers?
I'm sure because they have to list like why they wouldn't do it, and if they had to back out, and there have been situations where somebody's going to invest in a property, they don't, and then there's people are calling for the city to sue them, or for things to happen. So I think that's legit. I don't think there's a problem with that.
But okay, so then they clearly haven't been paying attention. I don't know. I'm not buying that. They're not paying attention to the conversation that's happening and has been happening for the last how many years in the city. I mean, if you think you're going to put in a pool of that size, right? You're paying attention to what's happening. You know what's happening with,
Okay.
they just want it more.
So
that's what it is.
So here's the thing about that. I think the layperson, me, doesn't know that an Olympic size or style, whatever the term is, swimming pool is 50 meters. I didn't know that. I thought there was enough, they were just going to basically rip out the high dive and redo the swimming pool and put lanes in. To me, that's what I thought they were doing at Colburn Pool. I was not aware that this was a major, major construction project that was going to cost millions of dollars, basically double what they had budgeted. That's a big turn of events. So thinking that they've been talking about it for so long, I don't think anybody was paying attention to that.
If you're Tundra Lodge and you're thinking of throwing how many million towards an Olympic pool, you're paying attention to that.
I think they might have started paying attention in the last year with the Titletown renovations, but I don't know. I mean, I like giving everybody the benefit of the doubt, but
that's nice.
Right? I don't know. Is that not nice? I don't know.
Well, I think that the Tundra Lodge, it has always been on everybody's. It's been like a topic that people have been discussing. If Colburn Pool doesn't go through, or if Tundra Lodge has always been out there that they were thinking about doing this. So there should be no surprise to anybody, I guess. When I first put in my papers for campaigning for alderperson, that it was definitely a topic that Tundra Lodge was looking at putting in an Olympic-sized pool.
So did you hear that from people? Were you hearing that from people in District 8? Were you hearing that they were thinking that was an option, and were they favorable?
They were favorable for it, yes. The people that I spoke with, you have to remember, a lot of people that are in our district, unless you have grandkids or you're a younger family, and being the short time summer that we have to go to Colburn Pool, I think, I don't know. I just think shouldn't be a big surprise to anybody that Tundra Lodge was going to put in an Olympic-sized pool.
So do you would you feel safe saying that from what you experienced, that the people of District 8, if you were, represent their feelings, do you think that that's something that, you would feel confident saying the people of District 8 probably would be completely fine with the Olympic-sized pool going to Tundra Lodge?
I am confident saying that I think the people in District 8 would be absolutely fine with Tundra Lodge putting in an Olympic-sized pool and Colburn Pool putting in a community-sized pool back to what it used to be.
Because I think that's what they were expecting in the first place. Like
I do.
Me. And so I want to know, and I'm sure you don't have the answer, but if somebody does have the answer, they should hit me up on Facebook or Twitter, because I want to know this $1 million that was raised. I know there were some fundraisers, and so like that gets a little gray because people come maybe from all over and buy stuff. I don't know what they did exactly for fundraisers, but were the people that actually donated money and not in exchange for services and a fundraiser, like that's a weird thing. But if they like that, like what do you do?
Right.
I'm going to give you your T-shirt back, or so I don't know what they did for fundraising. But if someone actually donated, like let's say I wrote a check for $1,000 to whatever the Friends of Colburn Pool, do those people live in District 8? Do they live within X number of miles of the pool, or are these what I'm classifying as, and I feel like this is a generous number, the 100 families that actually are involved in swim meets? Because I don't know. I know zero of these people.
Right.
So I'm assuming there's 100 of them out there.
Okay. I don't know exactly, too. I've heard that these kids who are participating in these swim meets aren't even in our Green Bay district, that they're from
I mean, and that's what I'm alluding to. How many
Right.
of them are
How many actually are in our district? I don't know.
so our communities, we're talking at city council about pouring millions of dollars into something that we don't have a plan for recouping.
Correct.
And it's for a small number of families that are impacted.
Correct.
And I mean, and I know I'm stereotyping, and I know there's going to be a few people that are, down on their luck, and their kids are in swim meets, and I'm sorry about that, but by and large, it's a thing like hockey where I think these are people that have means. So if they have to pay $5 instead of $1.50 or $10 instead of $5 to go to Tundra Lodge, I don't see why that would be a big deal. And also, I feel like it's a little bit negligent to have not explored all of the options available. Like, was the YMCA involved in this? Because they actually have indoor pools.
Right.
Why wasn't that money talked about with them? Like, why are we talking about this only as a city function when it's for 100 families, basically?
I think it would have been nice to have, to be fair, the Green Bay swim team.
I'll be the bad cop.
Okay.
You're the
I'm not
better cop.
I'm just trying to maybe fill in the blanks a little bit. So the Green Bay has a swim team; they are included, as well as I believe it was Pulaski, Ashwaubenon. There are other areas that are.
What does that
in this.
mean? Green Bay has a swim team. Is that a school team or what is that?
Well, no, I believe it's a community. It's a swim team, and so they have a legitimate swim team. So they are involved in this. But it would have been nice to have, and I think we've said this 1,000 times, really county support, because we're drawing from the county.
I just asked the Google.
Yeah.
Green Bay swim team.
I just asked the Google.
The very first two items were Green Bay YMCA. Just saying. But then there is a greenbayswimclub.org. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about.
Yes, I am.
So I just clicked on that.
But the $1 million was raised from various community members, and from what I understand, the money cannot go back to them based on how the rules and regulations for how it was collected and what they need to do with that. From what I understand, they need to use it for.
Do you know that
proposal.
they already spent $275,000 of that funds to get the RFPs for an Olympic-sized pool?
Right.
So at the meeting, I believe it was Randy Scandal, or was it Dave Netting, asked at that time, why don't we do 3 different size pools? Let's get 3 different, an Olympic-sized pool, a community-sized pool, 3 different sizes so we can look at what we can afford and what's in our budget. And it was all voted down. No one said, no, they didn't want to do that. All they were focused on was an Olympic-sized pool. So there, bam, $275 gone from that $1 million right now. Now they have to pay $175,000 for another. Now they're going to do 3 different size pools, and they're going to see which one fits into their budget.
So out of the 3, you said that they collected from that money to basically research that. Not one of those pools would be just a community pool that they could implement?
Those still has been. Those should be back in the next 2 months.
Okay.
So again, 2 more months are going to go by, and we're going to get 3 different prices for 3 different pools. Okay. So when do we start on this project?
And I would like to know.
Probably next year.
Well, probably next year, but I feel like, at some point, the RDA approved for Tundra Lodge to move forward with their proposal.
Right.
There was some discussion at council. It said there was no action on the item, but it looked pretty actionable to me. The fact that it's on the agenda, if there's nothing to discuss, and they discussed it. I sat through it for quite some time on Tuesday night. They're moving forward. It's obvious. So I don't know. I just feel like there needs to be more transparency about how this is even going to shake out. Now, the local newspaper says that we have, an issue with the mayor is actually the one that's actually the problem. So, are we just going to blame the mayor? Are we going to blame everything on him? This is why Tundra Lodge has come to the table. What do you think about that?
Well, again, Rhonda, I just feel that additionally, anytime you start a project, there should have been some concrete numbers to say, how much is this project going to cost us? When are we going to have this money? There should have been a timetable. And the fact that Tundra Lodge now just purchased additional property, and now they're looking at putting in an Olympic-sized pool, which everybody knew, over a year ago this was being talked about. And, the fact that, pointing fingers at the mayor, Chris Wery, if you were heading this project, you should have been upfront. You should have known what it was going to cost. From what the city engineer said, you knew that it was going to come in well over $6 million. When you initially took these kids and these families on this wild goose chase and saying, we're going to put an Olympic-sized pool and only asking for $4.5 million, when you knew it was going to be over $6 million.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what the donators. I would like to get inside their heads or hear from them. Like, how many of these people? Like, how many people actually put in money with the intention of it being an Olympic size or bust? Like, they don't care if it's not going to be Olympic size. Then they're like, whatever, let's just bury it.
Right.
I think that number is very, 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 very small.
Well, there were some pretty significant donations with that money.
Okay.
So I think it's probably, the number probably is small. So I feel like there's
So again, people of means.
right. Well, who else is going to raise? I mean, how are you going to raise $1 million in a short amount of time if you don't have people with means?
Well, I thought they've been working on this for years.
Well, yes, they've been working on it for years, but the Friends of Colburn Pool were asked to raise $1 million when the $3.5 million was basically promised from the city, which was like a year and a half ago.
Yeah. And I would also like to know if the city council people that did vote for that, if they fully understood what Olympic-sized swimming pool meant. Because honestly,
that's debatable.
Because honestly, like, I didn't know that the pool at the Y wasn't an Olympic-sized swimming pool. I didn't know that the pool at Southwest High School wasn't an Olympic-sized swimming pool. I was not aware of this. They used it for swim meets, so I'm super confused why we even built those pools as a community if we can't use those for swim meets, or can we use them for swim meets and we just can't have certain events? Like, I don't know that information, and I feel like I'm a pretty informed person, relatively informed person, and I just feel like we're missing a lot of information. I don't know.
I agree. I think that, there was a lot of discussion about this pool, and I feel that, there was no initial plan when they first started this. And, can they build an Olympic-sized pool for $4.5 million? $5 million?
Did you get a breaking text?
I'm referring. I'm looking at my. I was on Twitter this morning and I saw a headline from this morning. It said, from the Press Gazette, the Green Bay Press Gazette.
Yeah.
It said, this is a quote from our mayor, Jim Schmidt, and he said, John Bays, who is Tundra Lodge, did not want to be public. He didn't want to get in front of everyone. We forced his hand. I don't know. What do you think about that comment?
I don't know. I mean, we don't force all development projects.
We forced his hand, though. I mean, it's an interesting comment. Come on, it's an interesting comment.
It is, right? So what is that? Does that mean that who forced it? Number one, who's we?
Right.
Is we him? And
why would you force his hand?
Why would I?
No,
I wouldn't.
Why would any? No, but I mean, why would you force? Because,
right.
I'm sorry, this is an interesting comment.
Well, I think because maybe they did have that stipulation that they didn't want the Colburn pool. So then they're like, well, then you have to announce this, and we need to have a debate about it. That seems legit if that's the way it went down.
Okay, and this is a quote from our mayor.
Yeah, so I'm assuming it means that.
Well, and then Alderman Joe Moore responded to that and said, and I will find it.
Real-time update. Oh, this is so exciting.
No, I think that, this is what the public is seeing. This is what the conversation is. This makes a difference in Poolgate. So Alderman Joe Moore said, what, forced his hand to go public or forced his hand to build Olympic? And so I feel like, I don't know. I feel like there are still questions. Maybe we'll never get the answers to this.
Right.
But this is out there. He said it. So
Okay, let's just put that aside a second. I mean, and let's just say like Tundra Lodge is not looking at an Olympic-sized pool. Ashwaubenon just put in an Olympic-sized pool. They're going to have regional meets. They're going to have,
right.
They're going to take all the meets. I mean, and Bayport School just put in an Olympic-sized pool.
And why is that not okay, though?
I mean, I think that's absolutely fine. Where my point is, where I'm going with this is, we're still back to the fact of it's going to cost $7 million to put an Olympic-sized pool.
Yeah.
Where's this extra money coming from?
Right.
Where is this money coming from?
Well, yeah, and we debated that a little bit last time. They have these numbers that range from $400,000 to $800,000 per meet that comes into the community. I have no idea how they're coming up with that math. That's a lot of money. I mean, you could, if that kind of money comes in on a swim meet, well, then we should build all sorts of amenities. Maybe we should have a bicycle racetrack too. I don't get it.
I'd like to know where school districts get the money to put Olympic-sized pools in.
Wow. That's
Fundraisers.
So we're down to our last minute. You have any last thoughts, Debbie?
No, I just want to say thank you guys for having me today. And, I am in support of putting a new pool back in at Colburn Park. And I feel really, I think a lot of people were deceived in the initial numbers. And it's really sad that, that some people weren't honest and upfront.
Are you
with a lot of
hearing
these
anything?
hardworking
Are you hearing
individuals?
anything, though? Like, is anyone contacting you? I know on occasion I get a phone call or an email, even though I'm obviously I wasn't elected. But
Rhonda wants a scoop. You got a scoop.
No, or we'll take a scoop. But I mean, are you hearing from anyone? Has anyone reached out to you?
Not really, Rhonda.
Okay.
No. I just, from what I heard, though, from a lot of people I had spoken to, is that they're in favor of a community pool back at Colburn Park, and we need to fix our roads and our sewers and that type of thing. I think money can be spent better elsewhere to help our city and our infrastructure. So,
okay.
I think that's a good closing remark. Would you, if anybody wanted to get in touch with you, do you have any place online, anything like that?
I do. I have Facebook, and they can contact me on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, and you can get a hold of me on Twitter, on Facebook. I'm Elliot, Elliot on Twitter. And Rhonda is Sitnikau.
At Sitnikau, Sitnikau. No one can ever spell that name. So.
Yeah, right. I know. I have the same problem. And so for this episode of Political Radar, you can go online to politicalradar.com/4, and please subscribe. There's little buttons right there. You can subscribe right on iTunes, on YouTube, on Stitcher, on Android. You can subscribe using the RSS feed in your podcatcher of choice. You can play the episodes right from the website. So it's pretty amazing. And I think that's all we got. We wanted to keep it to half an hour. Bye.
Peace out. If you enjoyed this episode of Political Radar, please share it with your friends on Facebook and Twitter. Even better, submit a show review to iTunes or Stitcher. To listen to other episodes of Political Radar, please visit politicalradar.com/episodes. To support our podcast, please visit our sponsors who make the show possible. You can do this by visiting politicalradar.com/sponsors.
Thanks for listening to Political Radar. To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. To stay up to date, visit politicalradar.com or connect with us on Facebook or Twitter.
Political Radar is a proud member of the Newsmakers Podcast Network, an ever-growing network of podcasts covering a wide range of topics. Check them out at npcn.tv.